The culture is actually
The goddamn run the damn
Oh no, there's a man down.
I'm calling both games.
We are gathered here today to pretend to mourn the 2022 Green Bay Packers. A team who looked too far ahead for weeks on end and finally received their comeuppance. The cause of their death is pretty much everything. An offense that fails to stay in sync and abandons the run game at the drop of a hat. A defense destroyed by injury. A group that gave up over 300 yards passing to the second worst pass offense in football. It's all a recipe to lose 6 of 7 and wait for Aaron Rodgers to turn into a petulant child throughout the week. The feeling's mutual. The team gave up as quickly as Packers fans did. Tennessee strangled them until there was no life in their withered body. They are the heroes of the NFL. They put this menace in hospice. Rest in piss, Packers. The rest of the NFC North may now spit on your grave. The tank of tanks is an impenetrable specimen. An immaculate amalgamation of everything suck. In Houston, it rolls along with impressive resilience. They call their creation the Bryce Young. Look at this first half and be amazed at its awfulness. 5 yards of total offense. -1 passing yard. As many first downs as they threw pick sixes. 1. With such a showing, we can only look on in amazement. Washington will be handed the easiest win they will ever get and take it with a smile on their face. Taylor Heineke has given the commies the jolt they've needed to revive their season. That's why he's taken over starting duties from Carson Wentz. Don't look now, they're in striking distance for a playoff spot. All in a day's work for the Houston Texans. A true inspiration for tanking teams everywhere. The PJ Walker Show has been put on hiatus for the time being. Over 8 billion people live in this world, yet all of them will suffer high ankle sprains as QB of the Panthers. This means Baker Mayfield's revenge tour of terror will continue with incredibly disappointing results. Endless screen passes where stagnation is the name of the game. If you told me the Panthers deliberately took a dive for a bag full of cash, I'd honestly believe it. The offense was so lifeless that Jimmy Haslam ran a victory lap by proxy. It was agony on a national stage. Baltimore's offense could also do absolutely nothing whatsoever. The defense was balling out, yet couldn't be otherworldly to bail out Carolina's alleged offensive attack. It took over 3 quarters, but the Ravens eventually figured it out. Eventually. While being carried by the defense. Good news, Carolina! You stopped giving a shit about the Panthers 2 months ago, but it's beneficial. No living being should have to willingly see this kind of shit without being paid to. We were robbed. This should have been a glimmering adventure in a winter wonderland. Buffalo had over 6 feet of snow pelted over the span of 4 days. The motherlode was upon us. But then the NFL suddenly decided to care about player and fan safety. Punish both teams by sending them to a dystopian hellscape where all hope dies. Detroit. Even as Buffalo was buried by snow, over 50,000 Bills fans traveled by snowmobile to Ford Field. They saw their team rebound to 4. The asterisk is that it's against the Browns, but as long as you can get off the schneid, you'll take it. I'm more concerned over the fact that Josh Allen's elbow seems to be significantly impacting his throws, but it is a win. The offense dominated, and it should have been even uglier. If Buffalo could in any way cover Amari Cooper. There were a bunch of red flags for the Bills, but it was only a 1-score game due to garbage time. Speaking of garbage, Deshaun Watson's practicing with the Browns again. He'll be back in 2 weeks. Ironically against his old team. How convenient. Kind of like the Bills playing here again on Turkey Day. Don't go too far, boys. This is a breakthrough in the Sportsball era. The first Tank Bowl where both teams have no control of their first round pick. Also, we had a team go from Tank Bowl to Super Bowl last year, but not Super Bowl to Tank Bowl. Rams are so apathetic and disinterested in their lot that it's become reality. If you look at this match against the Saints, you'll see why. They are cooked. Not even a nice medium rare, but those completely charred remnants that get caught underneath the grill. The group's so checked out that they'll make Andy Dalton look like an all-pro. His throws to Chris Olave were effortless with how little resistance the Rams gave them. Matthew Stafford was back, thanks for asking. He'd be knocked out of the game with another concussion. Unfortunately, John Wolford was out with injury as well. LA must throw Bryce Perkins into the fire to burn alive. Rams, it's over. When you can't beat the Aints, it's time to pack it in. Sean McVay is slowly dying alive with this failure. It's like they're back in 2016 again. Many Giants fans I know were cynical about how this game was going to turn out. As much as I tried to tell them they were playing Detroit, they lamented how this was going to be a trap game for the team. I will never doubt them again. This was as much of a regression to the old mean for New York as any matchup has been this season. The Lions had a surprisingly solid game plan. Shut down Saquon and force Daniel Jones to win with his arm. There's a reason why Danny's been better as a secondary piece for the team. Just can't do it on his own. Not with how shitty his receiving core is. The Lions broke through the G-Men's stout defensive unit with solid, well-rounded play led by Jamal Williams' 3 touchdowns. The result is Detroit's 3rd straight win. The surge has gotten them to 2nd place in the NFC North. They are 4-6. That's all that needs to be said about this NFL season. Alien civilizations will see this in the future and deem that humanity is not worth saving for this reason alone. Egypt had the pyramids, we have the fucking Detroit Lions. So much for modern human achievement. Chicago Bears are the ultimate enigma of the league. A team that can do the impossible yet somehow fail to accomplish the most basic of tasks. They're at least a fun excursion while they spend the year losing for the almighty future. Justin Fields is blossoming in front of our very eyes, but he's still very, very raw. Can he tap into that upside? Who knows, but it's good to finally see him be allowed to use his damn feet instead of die in the pocket. That being said, the Bears still need many, many things. Like a defense to stop any sort of offensive attack. Or absolutely any talent they can get their hands on. This is what happens when you take a team down to the studs. There are a lot of imperfections. Same goes for the almost equal enigma that are the Falcons. They can show this sudden burst of skill yet fall to being a glorified tank just as fast. Against this defense, they can flex their strong running attack with a secondary passing threat. Both teams are trading blows in this affair, and we're tied at 24. This is when that wonderful Bears defense does its thing and bends to the might of Atlanta. Imagine saying that as Younghoe Koo drives the dagger in their heart. Chicago would counter, but it's not meant to be.
On 3rd down, given time. Too tall and Jalen Hawkins makes the interception.
The duality of Fields. There is much work to be done, and this loss proves it. If only he had a better everything around him to help out. By the way, a special shout out to Cordero Patterson. He just set the league record for kickoff return touchdowns. Is he a Hall of Famer? Never gave it much thought, but he could be. Philly has really opened my eyes these last few weeks. And not in the good way. Remind me of Steelers teams in the recent past. Heinously playing down to competition. Okay, football gods, it's not funny to watch teams struggle to Jeff Saturday's Colts anymore. That joke was hilarious for like a week. Short shelf lives and all, they're simply allowing the Eagles to fail to do anything on the offensive side of the ball. Stalled drives, brutal penalties, endless fuck-ups. This is the kind of game that gets you shit on relentlessly by the rest of the football world. Your defense is clamping down on Matty Ice as best as they can. They didn't bring in Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph just for you to lie down and die. Look, the defense is forcing Indy to fumble, allowing you a chance to return to prominence as a contender. What do the Eagles do? Well, give the ball right back to them. It is the season of giving, after all. It allows Indy to kick a field goal to go up by 6. This is when Philly is reminded that, yes, they are playing the Colts. They are supposed to win. All of those undefeated Jeff Saturday memes are young, but they still need to be killed for the sake of the brand. And we know just the man to do it.
Hurts will run. Takes it in. Touchdown.
Wow, I'm so impressed at you being bailed out by high-end talent after shitting the bed for 55 minutes. You won in spite of yourselves. Go give your cocks a nice tug for this ugly-ass win. Get your shit together, Philly. Not every opponent is going to be the goddamn Colts. Anyone who was at this game should immediately be inoculated with the Vikings-Bills thriller that occurred last week. This contest single-handedly set team offense back at least a century. When Zach Wilson collides with the bastard offense of Patricia and Judge, only horrors await. What we get is one of the games of our time. A complete insult to the very being of the sport itself. The Jets can lead the AFC East with a win. That alone proves how bullshit this season has been. People will say this year is a resurgence of defense. I will immediately counter with this match, for it's only worthy of being buried alive. I considered separating this video into a greatest game, but do we really want that? There's nothing to go off here besides Kevin Harlan dying in the broadcast booth. We're tied at fucking 3 deep into the fourth with nothing but punts galore and a few missed field goals. This isn't even the fun kind of awful game, it's just awful. A Friedberg and Seltzer movie played out on a football field. Worse enough, we will have to be tortured with overtime.
From the 16-yard line, Marcus Jones. Got a block from Schooler. Here he goes. He's going to try to beat the punter. He does. He's gone. And that is a touchdown.
I think even the football gods had enough. There were at least 3 blocks in the back in this return, but no one wanted this shit to continue. Therefore, the Jets lose and continue fulfilling the prophecy of the coin. Zach Wilson is also fulfilling the prophecy of terrible New York Jets drafting. You're really going to take no responsibility for how badly you played? Your team punted more than you had completed passes! Blame the wind all you want, but Mac Jones completed a decent amount of his throws. Look at this tape. That ain't wind. You're just fucking missing. The Pats dropped like 4 easy interceptions against you. No wonder why his job's in jeopardy now. If you do get benched, Zach, I have a hot mom for you to pine over. Her name is Lolcow of the Week. At least Sam Darnold can say he got ruined by Adam Gase. What the hell's your excuse?
As an offense, though, I mean, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. I mean, do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
Game of the week? Maybe in a Madden simulation. Mike McCarthy hasn't left much of his vices from Green Bay behind. This also includes his fetish of routinely humiliating inferior little brother in the Vikings. Nobody told Minnesota that medieval weaponry can't stop bullets. It was slaughter. A decimation of hope after one of the greatest wins in team history. The Cowboys' defense made sure of that, destroying Kirk Cousins in the pocket every chance they got. Tony Pollard dominating on the offensive side to slice apart Minnesota's defensive unit. Skull chants were done in mockery by Dallas, for vengeance after last week's humiliation was achieved. Once again, this was supposed to be the game of the week. How bad was it? The Vikings now have a negative point differential on the year. CBS turned away from this massacre in the third quarter, even in Minnesota. It was a mercy killing. Now let's let the Cowboys have their way with their victims in the dark. The less said about what they're going to do to their dead bodies, the better. Tonight, on Slow and Painful Deaths, more self-inflicted wounds in a season of woe. Mike Tomlin said this was the equivalent of a playoff game. Considering the Steelers continually fail in January, it was a fitting analogy. Against a team without 2 of their best stars in Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, the Black and Gold Brigade curled up into a soft Tampa 2 cocoon. Horrendously inconsistent offense. Terrible Canadian play calling. A so-called elite defense that gets gashed by Samaje Perine, despite TJ Watt trying to play God. Once the second half started, it was over. The Steelers had the lead, but they hit their quota of scoring 20 offensive points. It's the story of Pittsburgh in 2022. Winnable games they find ways to piss away. And it leads to all but the end of the road for many narratives.
Please, you have to help me. They've had me trapped in the basement for weeks. I've been surviving on nothing but stale bread and rat droppings. Please, do
Shut up!
What the fuck? Shut up!
As the past continues to die in the corner, so are the days of our Steelers.
I'm going septic.
Nathaniel Hackett has been a dead man walking since week 1. What's that, Mr. Walton? You forced to give up play calling since I'm overmatched as a head coach? Where do I sign up? Little does he know that the Broncos aren't cash poor like Mark Davis is. He will accept his lavish buyout like a man. It's probably going to come sooner rather than later. People willingly watched this game in person. They spent actual money to watch the Broncos offense ride the stadium into a black hole. The Raiders welcome you into this horrible abyss, as this is how the match ended up. Terrible offense being laid to waste at the hands of defensive might. At least we can say this about the Broncos defense imitating the 77 Falcons. The Raiders, though? Against Denver, maybe? It turned into a battle of the field goal. The end zone is a sacred land. Its virgin grass cannot be contaminated by human feet. It's a place where the only touchdowns are scored in the first half. And the misery doesn't end there. Overtime awaits. Because it's a fitting punishment for our arrogance. The fortunate thing is the torture is brief before we are put to our death.
Fake to Jacobs. Carr loads up. Adams is open. Walk-off touchdown. A sweep of the Broncos for Las Vegas.
A hilarious outcome. Las Vegas wins a game and fucks up their crafted tank for their next quarterback. The Broncos still can't solve the intricacies of scoring more than 16 points in a game. The only real winner in this match was Seattle. They went from laughing stock to laughing at all of us in 3 months. How the turntables. This has become a must-win affair for the Bulls. Not just for potential playoff aspirations, but for team reputation. They have to maintain pace with Kansas City to be seen as a respected unit in the NFL. It doesn't matter how battered the mistake in LA is, they must keep appearances. For whatever reason, most games between the Chargers and Chiefs as of late play out the same. It turns into an offensive duel where formerly San Diego flashes their offensive potential. As everyone questions what the fuck KC is doing on defense, then we remember the Chargers have an even worse outfit on defense to counter. Their offense can flash their might all they want. They can even have a lead at halftime, but we can all feel reality slowly creep in. Like in LA itself, the Chargers are the inferior team. They can't do a damn thing to start out the second half. Merely allowing Kansas City to showcase their cheap parlor tricks on offense everyone keeps getting fooled by. They'll take the lead. And as the Chargers make a valiant effort to advance, they fumble because they're being punished for the hubris of Spanos. However, the gods are cruel. They'll force a fumble on the Chiefs' side to keep things interesting. I'm honestly more stunned that Lombardi's allowing Justin Herbert to throw deep for once. But there's one problem.
Herbert looking, throwing, end zone, touchdown, Homer!
They gave Mahomes too much time. Way too much time. With how awful this defense is, they cut through them like butter. It's not even surprising at this point. Just play the touchdown.
Coming across to the left, on the run, Kelsey, touchdown!
Cue the screaming sound effect. Whenever they get the chance, the Chargers will inflict pain on whatever fan base is left. Justin Herbert will be blamed for not being clutch enough, but completely ignore how awful their defense has been all season long. Do you want Herbert to line up as a defensive tackle or something? It's the only way things may possibly change. San Francisco needs to clean the bugs off its front grill after this one. They flew through Mexico like they were gun running for the cartel. The vermin that happened to be in their way were the Arizona Cardinals. You could say they didn't have Kyler, but he wouldn't have mattered whatsoever. Shanahan's offense was nigh unstoppable for most of the night. A healthy spread to all of their weapons to make sure everyone was fed properly. What we saw is what the Niners can be at full strength on both sides of the ball. Getting the engines revved against a pathetically irrelevant franchise like the Cards can only be a good sign. Down here, San Fran was in a completely different class. Arizona looked like they just gave up halfway through the game by trying to disconnect from the server. Cards, if only you could rage quit those extensions you gave the failures you call a head coach and GM this past offseason. There's playing yourself, and then there's being hoodwinked by men that have done nothing at this level. Or any level, to be honest. Can we just airlift J.J. Watt out of there like we did in Houston? Let him take DeAndre, too. Football is a brutal game. May the bell toll for the fallen.
Unit lost.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit lost.
Thus concludes another week of this sermon on the field. Amen.
That's why backs are so deadly in this 2-minute situation.
First down and 10. Oh! And it's intercepted. Marlon Humphrey with a pick. Humphrey ending the Panthers' hopes with his third interception of the year.